Hey there, and welcome to this walkthrough of my everyday Django starter pack. This is a quick and easy way to get started with Django and deploy it to production within 10 minutes. It is meant for people who are interested in deploying their MVP or proof of concept to production very quickly. It's my way to get myself from an idea to a application that I can put into production and have other people use in minutes. It's something I use today. It's something I will use in the future when developing proof of concepts. It's really helpful for when I have those kind of light bulbs or kind of ideas and I just want to see if it'll work, see if I can put it into production, experiment with it. Maybe I found like a really cool library or something like that with Django that I want to try out in production, in a production setting. I can do that very quickly using this starter pack. So I figured I would release it to the open, to the public, and yeah, see if any of you would find it interesting. So with that being said, just a quick rundown of like the features that I've included in this project. Basically, it's a Django, based on Django. It has production database with Postgres, and I deployed to Heroku with zero downtime. I also have included a GitLab CI/CD pipeline to make the friction of deploying what you've been developing locally to production as smooth as possible and as repeatable as possible. So my assumptions, I make some assumptions. One is that you have Heroku set up, so that means you can run a command like Heroku version and you get an output. The other thing is that you also have Docker, so you can also run Docker version. And I think with the latest Docker, it should have Docker Compose also installed. If you don't have either of those two, you can go to their website and find out how to install those things. The third thing that I also assume that you have is a Gitlab account. So you can log into gitlab.com and you have an account here. So if you actually navigate to this link that I'll be providing, we can go ahead and get started following this step-by-step guide. First thing that we need to do is we need to clone this repository into a directory location that we choose. In this case, I'm going to be calling it Hero. That's the name of my app. You can call it whatever you want, just don't include spaces or try to avoid special characters, because those tend to mess things up a little bit. So for instance, I'm going to call this Hero. It goes ahead and clones my repository. I can see here I have a Hero app, or I have a Hero directory, and I can open up this in my Finder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drag it to PyCharm. Okay, so now I have this open in PyCharm. I can go ahead and actually rename everything that I've included as sort of like a namespace, if you will, as like a placeholder, I guess is the right term. And it's quite easy to do in PyCharm. You can probably do this in other IDEs. Just stick to, I guess, the IDE you're most familiar with, and you'll probably be able to find this command, which is replace all, more or less. And what this does is, it's easy in PyCharm. I like PyCharm a lot for this because I'll show you in a second, but I can basically do a standard replace with boilerplate to Hero. What I like about this though is that you can make it case insensitive, so that means this match case is toggled off, and you can preserve case when replacing. So that means that you not only replace boilerplate lowercase with Hero lowercase, but you also replace boilerplate uppercase with Hero uppercase, and so on and so forth. If it was all caps, it replaces it with all caps. automatically. That's quite important for this boilerplate because the capitals actually do matter. So I like to just go ahead and do this. And if we actually just click replace all, it should say 52 occurrences, and we go ahead and replace. Now, if I cd into my hero directory here, I'll see, well, if I do git status, I'll see that it changed a bunch of files. The other thing I need to change here, importantly, is the name of this directory. So here I can just do a simple rename, and I'm going to rename this to hero. Once I've done that, I can then move on to the third step, which is basically rewriting your commit history. We don't want to keep the commit history of the boilerplate repo, but we want to create a new Git history. So I can just run this command, and it will create a new Git repo. And what I'm actually going to do here is I'm actually going to move over to instead of master branch, I'm going to move over to a main branch. This is important for GitLab because they operate on main as default. I should be able to go and start up my local Docker containers with a simple make command. I'm going to start it up, make environment create. This should take about 2 minutes, I would say. And what this will do is it will start up a local Docker environment for you to play around with. You can develop with this Docker environment, and it'll be very similar to how production is run. We don't use, for instance, we use Postgres locally. We don't use another database locally, and that's because in production we'll be using a Postgres database. So any sorts of quirks or edge cases that involve Postgres specific things, you should be able to reproduce them locally. So as you can see here, my Docker environment has started up. I've run all the migrations automatically. And if I do docker ps, I should be able to see 3 containers spun up: Nginx, app, and db. Next, I can just show you really quick. If we do make bash, sorry. Here we enter into the container, into our application container, and here we can run our tests. So pytest, it's out all nice and pretty. We use Flake for linting, so Flake 8. If there was a problem, we can run Flake 8, and we can run isort. That sorts out our imports. From this prompt here, we can also run simple and standard Django manage commands. So one of those would be like create super user, right? Here we can create our super user. I'm going to go ahead and create one right now just to show that it works. And actually, if we go to our local host 8050, we'll be able to see our application has started up because it's serving this template here. And if we go to, for instance, the admin, our user was root, and I'll put in the password that I just created for my super user. And we can see we can access the Django admin. However, if we go back to that 8050 root, we will see some other cool things here. We have the Django Debug toolbar here, so that's quite handy. We have the route to our local API docs. That's useful if you're developing with Django REST framework. The API docs here will be automatically generated based on your routes. And again, if you have any questions, you can always contact me. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And that's about it for the local development. Just to prove here that we actually can develop locally. This is kind of the way I like to develop. So for instance, we have our tests here. And for instance, if I change this to fail, I can run PyTest, which I usually do after every change, and you can see it fails. Now, if I want to make it pass, it's very easy to go ahead and run it again and change it. So that's how I kind of iterate, and I've developed this to suit my needs. Yep. So now, if we go back to our GitLab README, so that's local development. Now, if we exit out of this, we can create our Heroku application. So this is moving this application that we have running locally here to production. So if I copy this this command, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create an app. This app name needs to be unique. This is important. It needs to be unique in the entire Heroku namespace. So meaning it doesn't conflict with anybody else's name. So if I chose Hero, that would probably fail because somebody else has probably already created an app called Hero on Heroku. But if I use something specific, such as Hero Demo AGY, my initials, I hit enter, well, that works. So my app on Heroku is called Hero Demo AGY. Just remember what you put in here because we're going to be needing that again in a second. So now that I have this application, or I have this app started in Heroku, or I have the app created in Heroku, I need to deploy this app that I have running locally to Heroku. In order to do that, I need to do a couple things. One of them is I need to set up some configuration on Heroku. So we do that with Heroku Config set. And one of the things that we need to do is this Django settings module. And this will be named Heroku.settings. It's called hero.settings and deployment. This hero is the name of this directory here. The other thing that we want to do is Heroku config set, and this will be called a secret key. And this, so the way I like to do this is that there's a Django secret key generator. And I'll go here and I'll generate a secret key. I'll just copy this over. I put it in quotes just because the special characters tend to mess around with the way that it gets resolved. Okay, we have set the secret key. So now we can move on to pushing our project to production. Do that super easily with just a git push Heroku master. This will take about 30 to 40 seconds. This is going to push our application using Docker to the Heroku infrastructure. So I've just run the git push Heroku master. And interestingly, we have run all the migrations that are included in Django, which is very nice. So if I actually wanted to view this, I could do Heroku open. In my browser, should open the index.html at my Heroku app URL, and I can see that, for instance, the Hero API docs are deployed. And if I go to Django admin and I put in my username and password, this will fail. And this is because we don't have a super user yet in production. To do that, we just do Heroku run bash. If we do Heroku run bash, it should get us into a container where we can run the same command, create super user. I'm going to create it. I'm just going to name it Andrew, so it's easy to remember. And my email address and a password. Now if I go back, there we go. We are logged in. I exit out of that, and I can move on to the next step. We want to create a new GitLab project. To do that, we can just click on this link here. I've got it open here. Create a blank project. I'm going to call this one Hero Demo, and I'm going to make it public, and I'm not going to initialize with the README. So what I do is I do copy this, git remote add origin GitLab, and do one more thing, which is I want to set up the CI pipeline first. So that way on my first push to the repository, it deploys that automatically. So in order to do that, I go here to my settings in my repository, and I go to CI/CD. We open up variables, and we're going to add a variable. Okay. Now this variable name, the first one will be called Heroku App Production. So go ahead, copy that there, and the value will be the name of our Heroku app. So that was Hero Demo AGY. I'm going to go ahead and mask and protect the variable, and I'm going to add another variable. This one is going to be called Heroku API Key. The way I generate this variable is by copying this command, Heroku authorizations create, execute it, and it is this token here. Importantly, it's not the ID, it's the token here. So this one that starts with 77. It'll be different for you, but you just copy that one over, paste it there. Again, I'm going to mask the variable, I'm going to add it. Okay, now once I have those set up, now I can do git push set upstream origin main. There we go. So now, if I go back to my project, my CI should be running. So here we can see tests are running. Now we are pushing to production. It should take 1 to 2 minutes to push. And that should be it. So that's it for me, everybody. If you found this helpful, let me know. It'd be great to hear any feedback you have, any issues that you've had. I'm always trying to make this better. My number one goal is to get things out there as fast as possible and help you do it. So let me know if you have any questions, and cheers.